I'm better than you type of play.
Is he now a lock to make it to New York?
At least that guy's got somebody there to be able to support him through the tough times.
The Big Bets on Campus podcast.
All right, here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to the Week 6 edition of Johnny's Intangibles. I'm Collin Wilson, joined here today and every week by Johnny Manziel to talk about the latest that's happening in college football. But first, we have to talk about the game that everybody's buzzing about. No, it's not Georgia and Alabama. It is, of course, my Razorbacks and Johnny's Texas A&M Aggies, who were very victorious. Arkansas, I feel like, shot themselves in the foot. Johnny, do you feel like Texas A&M took control, or there was just a boatload of mistakes in there from Arkansas?
I think this is kind of a little bit of what we've seen almost every single year in this game, which is just utter chaos. Some shooting yourself in the foot, some good plays made, but just another one of those wacky games in Jerry World for the Razorbacks versus the Aggies.
Yeah, if everybody doesn't know, we once saw KJ Jefferson try to do a 1st and 6 at the goal lines quarterback sneak. Now we've got fake punts, fake field goals. Of course, they don't work. Boy, Arkansas just shooting themselves in the foot. Marcel Reed didn't really do a lot to take ownership of the job. 11 of 22 passing, 2 TDs. He had a rush TD also, but he only had 13 yards on 10 carries. So not a commanding lead of the offense against Arkansas's defense. Connor Weigman's going to be a game time decision. I would think going up against Missouri's defense, where they're kind of soft in the back seven. Is this a game where Connor Weigman is potentially the better quarterback for Texas A&M?
I think this was always Connor Weigman's job coming into the season, and obviously injury derailed them a little bit of that. I think they're going to have a decision to make. Obviously, it's hard when you have Marcel Reed, who's come in, done his job, done what he's needed to, but really their downfield passing attack outside of, one big pass play they had in this Arkansas game has kind of been, non-existent for the most part. So it'll be interesting to see this week if they go back to Weigman or if they do end up sticking with Reed in this Missouri game, because this is a very big game for us this week.
Yeah, about 3 coin flip games as far as our Action Network power ratings go. There's about 3 coin flip games on Texas A&M schedule. If they survive those 3, that game against Texas could be for the playoff. It's just everything for Texas A&M from here on out is going to be massive. Let's move on to your MVP of the week. I wanted to reference our Heisman odds board. There's been some major shifting. Of course, Jalen Milroe, 27 of 33, nearly 400 yards passing, 2 TDs, and just amazing body of work of what he did against Georgia. He's all the way up at plus 250 in the Heisman market. Cam Ward takes a little bit of a step back. Shaky start against a havoc-minded Virginia Tech defense. Knew that was coming at some point. Ashton Jeanty still making a group of 5 push. And, of course, Travis Hunter doing his thing on both sides of the ball. But those are just the highlights from this past week. Johnny, who's the player that gets your MVP of the week?
As much as I want to go to Ashton Jeanty here, because what he's doing is just really just unprecedented, something that hasn't been done in a long time. I think looking at the game of the week and really what it was, you have to give it to Jalen Milroe. 374 yards, 2 touchdowns, over 100 on the ground, and another 2 TDs. But I think it's just how the game played itself out, right? Obviously, getting out on top of Georgia early, the way he, fit some of these throws in, the throws that he did make, and then being able to extend a lot of these drives with his running ability, to me, was just huge. You're going into a game like that against a Georgia team, and you come out right away and you play the way you do, and then all the way they come back into that game and you have the ball in your hand to go make a drive where you have to have something happen. We'll speak more about Ryan Williams later in the segment a little bit, but just what he did, Jalen Milroe did this week, I think is just incredible and very deserving of an MVP performance this week.
I have not seen anybody as dangerous on the outside, walking a tightrope and taking off down the sideline than Jalen Milroe in probably about 12 years since there was this quarterback at Texas A&M. It was a really impressive performance out of Milroe. So let's talk more about that Alabama-Georgia game, because it was one of the most epic things I've seen in quite some time. Alabama races to a 28-0 lead on Georgia. Georgia looks shell-shocked, just deer in the headlights. Halftime adjustments come in, and this is one of the best coaching staffs in the nation, and they were able to weather the storm, get the offense back on track. Let's talk about the Georgia offense first. Were they just too predictable? I know we talked about in the Action Network podcast that Dominic Lovett, they kind of fell in love with him in the slot. It's kind of easy to sniff that out in the first half. Or was this just simply Alabama's defense at the safety and corner position being too strong and reading Carson Beck?
I think early on in this game, Georgia very much had their shots. First drive, they come out, they throw one deep down the sideline, drop ball. and then the first pick that Carson Beck ends up throwing, he sees zero coverage. He sees it. He's prepared for it. He knows what's going on. The receiver doesn't get the signal, and they probably have a really good chance to score on that play if the receiver just runs a nice little tunnel screen. I think early on for Georgia, just a lot of miscommunication and not executing simple things that were there. I think the Alabama did exactly what they like to do, which is just come out and play best on best and play man coverage a lot. And they didn't really, play a whole lot of zone. So I think more than anything, coming out early in that game, Georgia just didn't execute a lot. And then once you get down, it's kind of, you get into the half and you get there, it's kind of, okay, let's just ease our way back into this thing and start seeing some completions and just start trying to do anything that we can do to get some positive momentum going.
Yeah, no hesitation. And defensive coordinator Kane Womack going cover zero, going man-to-man immediately and forcing Carson Beck to beat him. When you go to the other side of the ball, what Jalen Milroe has been able to do this year, pretty amazing from the stats. I mean, 10-1 TD to INT. He's made 84 pass attempts. And I have harped on what he does from a deep ball perspective because it's just beautiful, which we'll get into some of his targets. But since the beginning of last year, he has had 84 passing attempts, over 20 yards. He's had 0 turnover-worthy plays. So is he justified as the Heisman leader right here? And I have to ask, is it sustainable? He's probably justified at the top, but it's the kiss of death to be at the top of this Heisman leaderboard. So is it sustainable by Jalen Milroe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think they're playing great offensive football right now. As you work through those first 3 drives of that game, 3-4 drives, I mean, it was just easy, sitting down in zone, hitting this guy, that guy, really just kind of picking teams apart. And then when they do get into the run game with him, it's just as deadly as anything else that they're doing. So in October, as we sit here, is it justified at this point in time? Yeah, it is. And I think, they have a good enough team around him and a good enough schedule to where he can keep this up. But, it's hard to sit here and give somebody the Heisman at the end of September, early October.
Yeah, we have our Heisman voter, Brett McMurphy, says it's always won in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So this is a lot of fun. But Milroe is currently in the penthouse. We'll see if he can hold on against Vandy, South Carolina. That Tennessee game will be large. Let's move to our weekly film review, Johnny. There's really only one to discuss. I mean, there was a lot of good action out there in college football this weekend. But what 17-year-old Ryan Williams, which amazes me, he's not going to be 18 years old till February. So we get to say 17-year-old all season. 17-year-old Ryan Williams has the college football play of the year, play of whatever you want to say. What, out of my eyes, Johnny, I see 2 potential All-American defensive backs from Georgia literally hugging each other on this juke. What is it that you see out of this play from both maybe Milroe, Ryan Williams? What did the Georgia defenders do wrong? Because this is just an absolute beast of footage that Ryan Williams is going to be able to show for the rest of his life.
I think more than anything, it's really just an undefendable throw, right? It's supposed to be in a little bit of trail technique, probably from the Georgia DB right there, and it's pretty neck and neck. And the way that this ball just comes down perfect back shoulder, Ryan Williams has the body control at such a young age, and not having played very many games to really twist in the air, go make this play, and then come down with it and still be able to do what he does. I think after the catch is more impressive than even going back shoulder and getting this ball, because as long as he gets his eyes around on this and sees it out, he's going to be able to slow down and kind of get this. But what he does with it once he gets it in his hands, it's just a burst and just an acceleration that you don't see from a kid this young, a guy who I remember being in high school and you're getting into your first plays of going against varsity action, and you break one off and you get caught from behind, and you're like, damn, okay, maybe if I was a little bit older, I'm able to run some of these guys. He's no fear. He's running away from guys who have played a lot of plays and played a lot of snaps at Georgia and who are very, very good. So this is just a I'm better than you type of play. Great throw. Once he comes down with it, wow.
Completely instinctual in midair. He's spinning, so he has his eyes downfield when he hits the ground, which is amazing, which led me to this question because we've all known the career you've had, but from Pee Wee to college to NFL, is there a wide receiver comparison to Ryan Williams right now? Because I think we're seeing something at the college level that most wide receivers, we haven't seen this.
Yeah, no, I don't know if there is right now. I mean, obviously him playing for Bama, you maybe see a little bit of the Devontae Smith, the guy who ended up winning a Heisman there at Alabama. But, for the most part, this kid is coming into a class of his own.
So there were concerns in Tuscaloosa, and I bring this up because of Ryan Williams, and in college you have to stay for 3 years. So we know that Alabama is going to have him for a while, but that is if the NIL collective is going to be able to keep him. And I bring that up because this summer there was this narrative around the Alabama program that once Nick Saban left, a lot of these players were hanging around on a discount from an NIL perspective. Alabama was far behind on their NIL collective than most other power programs because they had that Saban discount. So is Alabama going to be in a position, you think, to tap every donor and open up the Brinks truck, back up the Brinks truck for Ryan Williams here? Do you see him playing a full 3 years of college?
Yeah, I see this guy being at Alabama for 3 years, playing it out and getting to be a high first round draft pick if this continues. I don't think there's any way that no matter NIL or whatever it is, this is the kind of guy that you find and do everything you can to ensure that he's on your football team for as long as he can be.
All right, Johnny. So when you have these big games and these huge victories like Alabama just had against Georgia, and then you come out the following week and you're a 3-touchdown favorite, how is it that you refocus, turn the page, and give out a quality effort the following week after such a big game prior?
Yeah, I think your mindset going into it is just business as usual, right? You get a huge victory the week before against a team who's very, very good. Maybe your opponent next week is not as great. It really doesn't matter who you're playing. It's next game up, next thing on your schedule, because at the end of the day, your goal coming into the season is to run the board. And this is just the next game that you have on that board. So I think obviously coming off a big win, you got to make sure that you're healthy, your guys are all put together, but you have to have a focus and attention to detail the same way that you do any other week.
Yeah, the Alabama defense going to stare down Diego Pavia this weekend. So that's going to be a little bit of a different challenge of what Georgia was showing. Let's switch gears. You touched upon it last week about Matt Sluka out at UNLV. UNLV and head coach Barry Odom decides to have a statement game. Quarterback Haj Malik Williams, who transferred in from Campbell, 13 of 16 in passing, 3 TDs, running the RPO to perfection, another touchdown on the ground with 119 yards. I think he averaged 10 per carry. Was 59 points a reflection of how bad Fresno is? UNLV wants to make a good conference game, or is this just flat out Barry Odom and offensive coordinator Brendan Marion sending a message to Sluka? Because 59 points is a little absurd when you're up by 45, 50 points. It seemed like to me like it was a statement.
I think this is something you want to get your new guy in there and you want to get him some confidence. I think more than anything, once this news comes out last week and Sluka's not going to be there, it's very much on to the next. And whoever you do have there in the team and in the building, as his first start, you want to try and build this guy up. He's your guy moving forward, and you have to deal and you have to play with what you have at your disposal. And I think this is a little bit of, trying to boost that confidence of that offense with a new QB sitting in there. And, they obviously played really, really well.
Yeah, I think, in this current landscape of NIL, I've been wondering all week. Like, I lost a couple bets this week, and I thought to myself, I don't think I've lost as much money as Matt Sluka from losing his NIL. But my question for him is when he hits the transfer portal, because he previously played at Holy Cross for Bob Chesney, who is now running things at James Madison. Is there going to be a home for Sluka in this NIL world that we have in college football where, yeah, we could get the kid. Yeah, he gets his collective money that we're paying all the quarterbacks, but we're in fear that this thing at UNLV could happen again. Do you think Sluka pops up at an FBS program next year?
I don't think this is something that should keep him out and keep him from going to another program or playing somewhere else, right? Obviously, it's a interesting situation that happened here at UNLV, but I think the guy should get an opportunity to go and play somewhere else, and we'll see what's going to happen with that for sure.
All right, so let's pivot over to Travis Hunter here. Another touchdown catch, another interception. Last week, we had 7 quarterbacks in front of him in the Heisman odds. This week, he only has 2 quarterbacks, and it's the 2 quarterbacks that we included in our top 3 last week, which was Hunter, Cam Ward, and Jalen Milroe. Is he now a lock to make it to New York? And what has to happen with Colorado for Travis Hunter to have a shot at winning the Heisman Trophy?
Look, they're playing better ball right now, and he's continuing to do what we talked about last week, which is going out, making plays on the offensive end of the ball and getting into the end zone, and on the defensive side of the ball, taking the ball away and making big plays in crunch time. So I think, he's well on his way to being there. I think if the season ended right now, he's obviously in New York along with Jalen Milroe, Cam Ward, and probably Ashton Jeanty if it ends today. But what we spoke about last week is what he needs to do. And I think what he did this Saturday is a direct reflection of what we spoke about. And I think, continuing to do that moving forward, make big plays, score on offense, and take the ball away on defense. He's as talked about as anybody in the country, and very deservingly so. I don't see him slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, it helps that Colorado's developed a running game. That's going to get them some more wins. That's going to help Travis Hunter in the long run. And I hope he makes it to New York just so there's some film, just so we can expose his TikTok account, which is like the greatest player TikTok account I've ever seen. The dances, the outfits, everything. It's pretty cool. I was heavy on Central Florida on Saturday night. Colorado smoked them. Miss Wilson here in the household barely let me come to bed. We have a video of this UCF kid. He's just drowning in emotional pain from this UCF loss to Colorado, but his girlfriend's patting him on the head, trying to warm him up. I have to ask, what draws more attention in a relationship, an embarrassing blowout loss or a boat race victory? Which one's going to get the more affection in a relationship?
You're probably going to get more love out of the blowout loss. I think the boat race victory and getting to go out and celebrate, that's always a little bit better feeling. But at least that guy's got somebody there to be able to support him through the tough times, because that was a tough day for UCF on Saturday.
Yeah, getting through a hurricane and then getting blown out like that is tough times there for the UCF kid. All right, Johnny, before we let you go, we're going to check in on a couple rookie quarterbacks inside the NFL. And you've studied all these rookie quarterbacks for us here at Action Network pre-draft. Jaden Daniels has been the most awesome for the Commanders through the first 4 weeks. What has stood out most to you about Jaden Daniels, the current Heisman winner, and how high is his upside here?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out the most is obviously his completion percentage. The ball is not hitting the ground very much. He has every single bit of command in this offense right now. He's made some, 2 weeks ago, he made some unbelievable plays against zero coverage, just really, really seeing the field well. I think him and Cliff Kingsbury are an absolutely amazing match. Cliff is obviously a guy I've been very close with for many years, an unbelievable coach. And I knew going into the draft process that this was going to be his guy. So to see this relationship develop through the first early part of the season has to feel amazing for him, has to feel amazing for this Washington Commanders football team, because Jaden Daniels is playing as good a football, not only as any rookie in the NFL, but as probably as any quarterback throughout the entire league.
Well, that kind of makes this question a little moot here, but we'll go ahead and ask it. Better QB number one right now and in the future, Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams?
I think Caleb Williams will continue to develop and grow as the season goes on. But where these guys are right now and the way that this season is played out and the ball that has been played so far, it's Jaden Daniels, and it's not even close. And I really think right now, if there was an MVP race for the NFL, I think Jaden Daniels would be very, very highly up on that list. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, he is playing incredible football, seeing the field well, and they're obviously off to a great start. So very happy for him, and very happy for my guy Cliff, especially going back into a Arizona setting, an Arizona situation this week, who they played, and getting a win against a former team that didn't want him there. I think anytime you get a chance to do that and go against a former team and somebody that obviously gave you the boot, to come out and have a day like that and score as many points as they did and have the offensive performance, it's got to feel great, and it couldn't be happier for them.
Revenge matters to coaches and players in the NFL, not just college. It happens in the NFL also. That's going to do us for this week's edition of Johnny's Intangibles. Thank you for joining me again, Johnny. We'll be back next week for more recap on week 6. Talk to you then.
Appreciate you, buddy.